Hi there. So I thought I'd do just one of these drop-in say hi kind of videos. I haven't done a video in a while, so if this is your first time watching me, uh, the name of my channel is Car Camp Seattle, so you would think most of my videos would be about car camping, but I feel lately I've been doing a lot more of what I would consider Car Camp Seattle explores. Some of my videos have just been about exploring different areas around the Seattle area. And of course, when it comes to starting a channel, it's kind of like, well, what should I talk about on my channel? So when I very first started, I thought I would just talk about what it was like living in my car in the Seattle area. But of course, things have changed over time. So I've talked about other topics such as trying to find a job. I've talked about losing weight. So when I first decided I was going to lose weight, I didn't know if I should do like a whole video series about it because I thought, well, what if I don't end up losing weight and I'm a total failure? So I was like, maybe I shouldn't record my weight loss journey. So over time, I did lose some weight, and I've talked about it a little bit on this channel, but I haven't gone into full details about it. And then, of course, every time I do a community post, it's usually about how expensive things are, meaning it's very expensive to buy a home, it's expensive to buy food. There's like a lot of things that are expensive, but that's life. So I think coming up, some of the topics that I might cover are, besides just living in a car, is more of a what things were like before I moved into my car, and then what were things were like after I lived in my car, because there is obviously a lot of transitions that take place there, because you think like, why would someone do something so drastic as to move into their car full time, whether that be by choice or because you have to, because you have nowhere else to go. And so I feel like there's a lot of videos out there, people who are living in their car to save money. But, you know, if there's ever a situation where you had to move into your car as like a last resort, lose your job, you have no money, you have nowhere to go, at least you have a car, because at least with a car, you have a roof over your head. But I will just say that for me, I thought living in my car was just going to be a temporary thing. And then it ended up being much longer than temporary. I used it as a means to be able to move out of state, to move from one location to another, mainly because I wanted to take a job somewhere, but I had nowhere to live in that new city or that new state. And so it was kind of like, well, where am I going to stay? Because I figured if I just stayed in my car until I could like save up some money and get an apartment, and then getting an apartment was like really expensive, especially with like all the deposits and move-in fees and getting your utilities set up. So that's why I ended up just staying in my car for a while. And then over time, as I've talked about on this channel, eventually I found places to rent, and some of them were just temporary, like people would have a room for rent and I would just stay somewhere for a short while. And then that tends to be a challenge, because then when you actually do want to find a place of your own and get an apartment, you need to have some sort of rental history. And if you've been living in your car, you don't really have much of a rental history. And if you've just been like sleeping on your friend's couch or whatever, you don't really have much of a rental history that you can prove. So that's why that was another challenge that I had to go through. So I would say, you know, like I said, that even though I had moved from one state to another to take a new job, and so I was staying in my car, that sort of thing, I feel like there was like a lot of things that led up to that decision. Because obviously if I was perfectly happy in my life at the time, I wouldn't be looking for new jobs. I wouldn't be looking to move out of state. You know, I wouldn't be looking to take on a new path in life. And so that's why I have touched on that a little bit on this channel, about what led up to me wanting a big change in my life, because it is obviously a big change. But then I've talked a little bit about some of the rental experiences I had trying to find a place to live after living in my car for a while. And even though I only like briefly touched on that, I believe in like one of my live streams, I feel like maybe I could talk about that more, about some of the experiences I went through and trying to find a place to live, long-term stay, motels, you know, renting a room from someone off Craigslist, you know, those sort of things. So the other thing that has occurred within the last 10 years of my life is working seasonal jobs. And so a lot of times seasonal jobs will offer you housing. So while you have the job, you have a place to live, but then the season ends and then you don't have a place to live anymore. And they probably just expect you to go back home. But if you don't have a home to go back to, then, you know, you're looking for the next seasonal job. And so that's why a lot of times you'll see videos about people that are doing like the van life thing, and usually they are living in their van, but they're also like working at some sort of campsite or something. So they actually have a job, they have income, and then they have somewhere to park their van full time. And I'm sure that works out great for them. And I always felt like if I had a much bigger vehicle, that would be great, because I've been trying to squeeze myself into this small car along with everything I own and just making it work. And sometimes that's what you have to do, is you just have to make it work with what you've got. And if you can't afford a nice van or an RV that had a bathroom and a shower in it, you know, like if all you have is a car, then that's what you've got to make do with. And so one video I need to probably do is just show like a full setup, from like stripping down like all the seats and everything, and then how I kind of built the back end of my car with like basically like a wood platform, and then put like a mattress back there and everything. So I would like to show that from scratch, to just kind of show like what I did to do that in my own vehicle, because this is obviously a very small vehicle, but it works for me. Now I am 5'5" tall, but if you were a taller person, it might not work for you. Now another thing is, I have the passenger seat. I've always left the passenger seat in, but I think there are times when people, if they are living out of a car, removing some of the seats does help, because that gives you more room to work with. So back to the other topic that I said I would try to cover, is the process of trying to find a place to live after you've been living in a car. Now, of course, when I moved and I started a new job, you know, I was saving up money, and that's the whole thing. So, you know, people think like, well, maybe I'll save up so much money, I'll get a down payment on a house, or, you know, I'll buy some land or something like that. And that's a great endeavor. For me, I was just looking to find a place to stay for a while until I figured out, you know, I was new in town. I didn't know really like all the neighborhoods or all the areas, or like what areas are considered like safe, what areas are going to be close to my job, you know, am I going to have to drive a long distance to get to work? So sometimes it was like I had to learn the city first before I could find a permanent location. And so that's why I've also moved a lot since coming here to Seattle. Now, let me just say, before I get into all the little like one-offs, like rent a room, stay somewhere for a month, those sort of situations, when I finally got a place, my own place in my own name, you know, passed all the background checks and everything, the problem with that is I moved into the place December 2019. And then part of the reason I was able to do that is because I had changed jobs or accepted a new job. And usually, you know, when you try to get an apartment, they need to know what your income is. And so I had to have my new job that I had just started. I was going to be starting a new job for the new year. And so my employer had to basically present a letter to say like that I've been hired, that this is what my salary is going to be. And basically, you know, I had to prove that I do have some income in order for them to let me move into this apartment. Well, the problem is, then came January 2020, and my employer was like, we're going to have to shut down, because it was basically like governor's orders that certain businesses that deal with the public needed to shut down for supposed safety reasons. And so I was told we would just be out of work for like a week. And then they told us we would just be shut down for like 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, like they'd let us know when we could come back to work. And then it was like the place just stayed shut down, and I had no job and I had no income. And then also I tried to apply for unemployment, because at that point in time I hadn't been like fired or let go. I was on what was considered standby, meaning I was not working. I could not come into work. There was no work available, but yet I was not fired. I was not, you know, out of a job, that I was just waiting for them to tell me when I could come back to work. And so I had applied for unemployment, and supposedly, now I don't know what the process is normally, because I've heard people say that it could take like 2 weeks for unemployment to go through. And then I also heard like, you know, because there was a so-called state of emergency, people were getting their benefits like right away, like right in the first week that they applied for them. And so I thought, okay, well, that's going to at least get me through while I'm waiting. Well, so like I said, I had just moved into this brand new apartment in my name and everything, you know, on my credit, with no cosigner or anything. And then basically I have no income. Like, so that was bad news, right? So then I was like waiting for the unemployment to pay me. And then unemployment was like not paying. And I don't know why. And then there was really no way to like contact them. They of course have a phone number you would call, but you would call it and it would just be like a busy signal, because I'm sure there were like thousands and thousands of people also trying to call. And if you tried to go online and check your account online, there were no updates, and I was waiting and waiting and waiting. And like, it was very scary and very frustrating. And then it was kind of like, what do I do now? Like, I can't pay rent. I just moved into this brand new place. I can't even pay rent. You know, eventually the city, like the city of Seattle, like they passed something, some law or whatever, where they were saying you can't evict people. You know, and there was like a certain amount of time, or there was just like a hold on evictions. Like even the courts were closed. So it wasn't like your landlord could take you to court, because like even the courts were closed. Like everything was closed. It was 2020, and y'all know what happened in 2020. So it was like, okay, well, that's good, because now I have, you know, they're not going to kick me out, right? But also, like, I still owe them money. And although there were probably a lot of people that could have paid their rent, they were just choosing to not pay their rent because they figured I don't have to pay my rent and they're not going to kick me out, not going to get evicted. So people were just choosing to not pay their rent. And I'm someone that's very much like, well, if there's money due, like, I feel like I should pay it, because come down the road when I want to move into another place, like, you know, it's not going to look good if they say I didn't pay my rent. So like, I was really scared. So, you know, in the beginning I was really like, they're going to kick me out, I have nowhere to go. But then when they passed that thing saying you couldn't evict people, that made me feel a little bit better. But I still felt like uneasy, because I still felt like the landlord's still like sending me notices asking when I'm going to pay. And I'm trying to tell them that, you know, I filed for unemployment, I haven't gotten any unemployment payments yet. And of course they don't know, like, if I'm lying just to like get out of paying them. Maybe I could be getting the unemployment and just not paying them. But I was like trying to like send them screenshots and prove to them, like, here's my account. When you look it up online, you can see there's been no payments issued. You can see that it says my case is pending. Like, I'm just not receiving money and I don't know what to do. And it wasn't like I could go out and get a new job, because at that point, like, everything was closed. And even like businesses that were around me, like businesses were just starting to like board up their windows. Like, it was just like, they're like, we're closed down. Like, and I mean, it was like boarding up their windows, because I think they were probably like thinking like there's going to be like riots or something, because like people like are out of a job and have no money, and it's going to get scary. And so it was just like, so where can I even try to get a job? Like, everything's shut down. Like, even though unemployment usually expects you to like still apply for jobs, like places were like not even like taking applications. Like, places were shut down, so there would be no reason to like hire people. So like, this is why I say, when I want to talk about what it was like trying to find a place after living in a car, and then having that experience being like, here's my first place after living in my car, just like thinking like, I'm gonna have to go back to living in my car. And one of the great things about living in your car is you can always get like a gym membership, and then that way you can still like shower every day. Well, gyms were shut down. Like, so it was like you couldn't even like go to the gym to go take a shower every day. Libraries were shut down. I couldn't go to the library to just go somewhere, like, you know, use the internet or something, to just sit somewhere for a couple hours. Everything was closed. And so even though I was just like, I don't know if I want to go back to living in my car, when like all the things I relied on to get me through living in my car are closed down. Prior to that, like, you know, when you're living in your car, you don't have a bathroom, right? So you would just go to your local fast food restaurant and use their bathroom. But fast food restaurants were closed down. Everything was closed down. And so it's just like, in a sense, I was lucky at that point in time that I just happened at that point in time to get my apartment right before everything shut down, because then I still had a place to live. But man, what about everybody else? What about all the other people that just didn't? Like, I mean, I don't know what those people did. So like, at least I can say I was lucky. I'm grateful. And so that's why I'm like, maybe I should do more videos about that whole time or that whole situation of what went on. But I will keep, I'll end the video here, because I feel like maybe I've rambled on a little bit too much today. But I just want to say thank you for watching, and make sure to like, subscribe, share, blah, blah, blah. Like all the stuff that the other people tell you to do, because it helps me, and hopefully it helps this video push it out to other people. And anyone that's interested in any of these topics, always leave a comment and let me know like what your personal situation is when it comes to car camping, living in your car, or anything related to that. Thank you.